We've been looking into the podium, Andy.
I call to order the meeting of the Verona Plan Commission for Monday, December 4th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. We'll begin with the roll.
Wood.
Here.
Diaz.
Here.
Posey.
Here.
Lytle.
Here.
And Hankard.
Here.
There's 5 present, Mr. Mayor.
Excellent. That's enough for quorum. We'll move on to item 3, which is public comment. If any members of the public wish to speak, now would be the time to do so.
Hello, I'm Connor Nett with Forward Development Group. I'm here to talk about 509 West Verona Avenue, which is agenda item 8. So there are 3 main components to the concept plan submittal, which includes extended stay multifamily, event center, and multifamily, market rate traditional multifamily. I'd like to talk about how these 3 components relate to the GDP, which was initially submitted in 2018, which included a hotel and convention center. The first program item being the extended stay multifamily, which most closely aligns with the hotel program. So post-COVID, the hospitality industry is recovering, but continues to recover slowly. So the prospect of bringing on a 110-unit hotel, which was contemplated in the original GDP, remains a risky endeavor. And we think that the extended stay multifamily would be a bridge between the hospitality and the multifamily, creating an opportunity within the community for kind of that mix between the two. Secondly, and most excitingly, would be the event center. Without the hotel component, a traditional conference room space doesn't have the same draw or supporting programs such as the hotel units or a full kitchen. But the event center has the opportunity to stand alone, creating a unique venue within the city, and provides the flexibility to entertain a wide range of events, such as weddings and things like that, that could be supported by the traditional convention center, but our operators that we're working with find that people are looking for that kind of unique space. And that brings the third piece. We have a third-party owner and operator. They weren't able to attend tonight, but they're excited about being here for future meetings, as well as participating in the overall program. And then the third program item being the multifamily. Vacancy rates remain low for market rate within the city. And we also think the additional density will help support commercial space within Sugar Creek Commons as well as the surrounding area. We know just in 2023, the amount of commercial activity we've seen in Sugar Creek Commons has increased compared to the opening in 2022. We think that has a lot to do with increased density in the area, as well as the commercial space starting to get traction. 11,000 square feet of commercial space, the Bogey Factory, which is going to be a restaurant slash golf simulator bar, is opening. So these are all things that we're excited to continue kind of building that program. And one thing I forgot to mention is that the multifamily extended stay, the ratio between the two is not something that we have solidified yet, but we'd be open to comments on that. So we're excited about this mixed-use project, which it brings to 509, and we'd be happy to be able to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. We are still in public comment, so if any other members of the public wish to speak, now would be the time to do so. All right, not seeing anyone approaching the microphone, we'll move on to item 4, which is the approval of minutes from the November 6, 2023 Plan Commission meeting. Corrections or motions to approve? Commissioner Wood.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion by Commissioner Wood. Is there a second? Seconded by Alder Posey. Last chance for corrections. Seeing no hands. All those in favor of approving the minutes from the November 6, 2023 Plan Commission meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. And the minutes are approved. We'll move on to item 5, which is a public hearing regarding a conditional use permit for a professional office located at 161 Horizon Drive. Ms. Holt, can we get a brief overview before we go into the public hearing?
Yes, so a conditional use permit is requested to have 11,527 square feet of professional offices. The public hearing notices were mailed out to the property owners within 250 feet of the property. A public hearing notice sign was posted on the property, and the public hearing was advertised in the newspaper.
Thank you. With that, I will move. What's up? Are we good? All right. Well, we'll proceed, technical issues notwithstanding. I will move that we open the public hearing regarding the conditional use permit for a professional office located at 161 Horizon Drive. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Lytle. All those in favor of opening the public hearing on this topic, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And the public hearing is open at 6:35. Do any members of the public wish to speak on the conditional use permit? Not seeing anyone approaching the microphone. I will move to close the public hearing on this topic. Is there a second? Commissioner Hankard, I think, was first. All those in favor of closing the public hearing on this topic, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And the public hearing is closed at 6:36 p.m. Ms. Holt.
Okay. I'm hoping things are showing up on your screen.
Maybe. Andy's working on it.
Okay. Well, this one we can work off the packet if that works for everyone. So the property is located at 161 Horizon Drive and is shown in yellow and is in the former office space of JSD and Forward Development Group on, right there by Fifth Quarter area. So the applicant is requesting approval of a condominium plat to split one unit of 11,527 square feet into two units of approximately 4,952 square feet and 6,757 square feet. The property is zoned suburban industrial. The applicant is splitting this unit into two units for each to have its own ownership, which is why they're doing the condominium plat. Staff has no concerns with the condo plat. In addition to this, a conditional use permit for a professional office is being requested for the two proposed condo units, as this was not previously required in the former zoning ordinance. So a conditional use permit requires all conditional uses to meet the general requirements in the zoning ordinance, which are met. With that, staff recommends the following Plan Commission actions. Recommend the Common Council approve the condominium plat to create 2 units at 161 Horizon Drive. And recommend the Common Council approve the conditional use permit to allow professional office for units 6 and 21 located at 161 Horizon Drive. And as a side note, the agenda shows them reverse language of what we're proposing as the staff recommendation to ensure that we're not approving a conditional use permit to allow professional office for the entire building, but just for these 2 particular condo units.
Okay. When someone makes the motion, I guess you can interrupt if they got it wrong. All right.
Got it.
So we will start with the conditional use permit. Is that correct?
With the condominium plat, please.
Oh, okay. Condominium plat first. All right. We will start with 5B, which is the condominium plat review. Questions or comments on this one, or motions? Alder Posey.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend the Common Council approve the condominium plat to create 2 units at 161 Horizon Drive. Did I get it?
I think that was it. All right.
I see a nodding head.
Motion by Alder Posey. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Wood. Motion before the body. Questions or comments on the motion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of recommending to the Common Council to approve the condominium plat review to create 2 units from the 1 unit located at 161 Horizon Drive, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. And that motion passes. We'll move on to 5A, which is regarding the conditional use permit to allow a professional office located at 161 Horizon Drive. Questions, comments, or motions on this one? Commissioner Lytle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If Ms. Holt could kind of clarify, so the underlying zoning with the new zoning ordinance is suburban industrial, and so this is more of a commercial or office use. So anytime a tenant change happens at this condo, will we be needing to issue a CUP for that? Or is this triggered because of the dividing of the unit into 2 separate units?
The conditional use is for the land use itself, which is the professional office. So once it is granted, it is good until a year after that use is no longer being utilized. So for example, if an office is like JSD and Forward Development offices used to be there. And if they were under the current ordinance, they would already have a conditional use permit, and the new, whoever purchases the property as a new tenant could use that conditional use permit for a professional office. But since the previous ordinance did not have it that way, then now we're trying to make everything right for the new owners to make sure they can do what they need to do.
Thank you. That makes sense. So just following up to make sure I understand. So if tenants would change in other units, existing units in this overall condo, would a similar activity with the CUP have to happen as those properties changed hands? Like, for instance, I don't know, Angel's Wish, I think, is still there, and if they were to move out and a new tenant move in of something that doesn't completely align with suburban industrial, then they would go through the same process as the current discussion?
Yes, that's correct.
And then I guess that just raises the question, is the suburban industrial zoning that we have for this overall tract make sense given the current uses that are there, or is it something we should look at kind of longer term to rezone that to better align, so every time there's a change in owners of a condo unit there, we're not approving a CUP?
I think we can have that discussion as part of a as part of the comprehensive plan that we'll be doing soon. And that would be, like you said, a long-term discussion on how that property should function. Because we have that one, the vacant lot to the west of it, and then the other one is also kind of a similar condo plat for the property that's on Enterprise Drive near to on Horizon Drive. So that would be probably part of the larger discussion, but you are correct that anytime a new tenant would come in that wants to do an office would have to come in for a conditional use, but once it's granted for that unit, as long as the next user is the same office style use, then they would just automatically carry that forward. It goes with the property until it's vacant, well, until the office use is no longer in that unit for a year.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments, or motions on this one? Alder Posey.
This is kind of an applicant question, so I'm not sure if you handle this one too. Okay. Is there tenants? Are there tenants already planned for these properties? I have curiosity.
Yeah, the larger space shown in orange is currently, that's the reason for the condo plat. Capital Security is looking to move into that space as soon as possible. And then the other unit would remain available. But I will say that the smaller size of it has created interest. It's kind of hard to find 11,000 square feet, but smaller has been better.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions, comments, or motions? Alder Posey.
I'd like to recommend the Plan Commission recommend the Common Council approve the conditional use permit to allow professional office for Units 6 and 21 located at 161 Horizon Drive.
Motion by Alder Posey. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Lytle. Motion before the body. Questions or comments on the motion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of recommending to the Common Council to approve the conditional use permit to allow professional office located at 161 Horizon Drive, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. And that motion passes. With that, we'll move on to item 6, which is regarding the conditional use permit for a drive-through on Lot 12 in Liberty Business Park located north of County Highway M and west of County Highway PB. Before we get into the public hearing, can we get a brief overview, Ms. Holt?
Sure. So a conditional use permit is requested for 2 drive-throughs on Lot 12 in the Liberty Business Park. A public hearing notices were mailed out to the property owners within 250 feet of the property. A public hearing notice sign was posted on the property, and the public hearing was advertised in the newspaper.
Thank you. With that, I will move that we open the public hearing on this topic. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Hankard. All those in favor of opening the public hearing on this topic, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And we're in the public hearing at 6:46 p.m. So if anyone wishes to speak regarding the conditional use permit for a drive-through on Lot 12 in Liberty Business Park, located north of County Highway M and west of County Highway PB, now would be the time to do so.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Steve Panko on behalf of the applicant. We were here before you a couple months ago to talk about putting a car wash and a national sandwich chain.
Is the microphone on?
Yep. Do you want me to get closer? Or-
Yeah, maybe it is.
Am I really too short? Tell the guys I played basketball against last night that. So we're here in front of you to ask for conditional use. We have a national restaurant chain that's interested. They're typically about 400 to 4,500 square feet. They're now downsizing to about 2,400 square feet and do require a drive-through. And then we'd have a non-food user next door to them. And then on the corner, we would have the car wash. It's a regional chain with several units in the area. They do a very professional job. I think you have Kathy actually has all the paperwork, and I think all the members here also have it. And then we did listen to you in regards to the back lot and trying to create something that's more conducive for the city and per their desires and wants. So we told the daycare center that, that we would not be moving forward with them. So I'm here to answer any questions. At about 4 o'clock on Friday, I did get notice from the Highway Department asking about the traffic impact study. What we've concluded was that we would make our application and approval contingent upon satisfying the Highway Department. What we do is just basically take the existing impact study from Costco, update it, and submit it for staff approval. From what I've talked with both Jamie and Catherine, they did not feel that that was going to be any issues. So I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. If there's a question,
Okay, I'll sit up.
yeah, you'll get called up. We're still in the public hearing. Any other questions or any other public comments? All right, not seeing anyone approach the microphone, I will move that we close the public hearing on this topic. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Wood. All those in favor of closing the public hearing on this topic, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. And the public hearing is closed at 6:49 PM. Ms. Holt?
Okay. So the property is located on lot 12, which is shown in yellow in the Liberty Business Park. The vacant property is approximately 5 acres and is zoned suburban commercial. An initial review was done in October of this year by the Plan Commission for a car wash with a drive-through, as Steve mentioned, the potential daycare and restaurants. Comments from the Plan Commission included questions about the traffic signal and road improvements, the road improvements needed for the property, recognized the need for the daycares, but agreed that the vacant lot along the highway would have its challenges. Open to the restaurant and retail land uses, and concerns about the number of car wash facilities in this area. The property is part of the 2010 Southeast Neighborhood Plan, which confirmed that commercial development should occur on this property, as well as guidance for landscaping. So the applicant is proposing a 5,700 square foot car wash, which is in blue, and a total of 5,460 square feet of food and retail over the 2 properties, with 2 acres for future development along the highway, which is the blank spot in the north. The buildings meet the setback and bulk requirements, especially since there's this 42-foot highway setback requirement along County Highway M and County Highway PB. Access will continue from County Highway M and a shared access roadway between the 3 future properties. As access will be shared, staff recommends the applicant have a cross-access easement agreement between the 30 lots to ensure access is available to everyone in the future, and that could be included in a certified survey map in the future. As Steve mentioned, they tried reaching out to Dane County several times early on and about a traffic impact analysis. Staff was informed Friday that this analysis is required as the property has direct access to the County Highway M, which is controlled and reviewed by Dane County. So that will have to be, we're recommending a conditional approval that we'll discuss later. Regarding the parking, the site plan contains a total of 21 parking stalls to be used for the vacuums for the car wash and 3 parking stalls for the employee parking. So the zoning ordinance requires 1 space per 300 square feet of gross floor area for a car wash. So that would require approximately 19 to 57 parking stalls. But the car wash has 21 vacuum area spaces and parking for employees. So we believe that that is sufficient for the parking demands for a car wash. The zoning ordinance also requires one electric vehicle for every 50 parking stalls, and the applicant has provided that on the fast food area and retail space. The parking for the car wash is less than 50 parking stalls, so it would not require an electric vehicle charging station. Bicycle parking is provided for both buildings and meets the requirement. So with that, staff, there's a more detailed analysis in the staff report about the fast food and the retail, which, as the applicant just mentioned, it would not be another food restaurant, which would mean that it would need as more the maximum amount of parking for that area. So this is the proposed car wash. It's proposing 16 21-foot full cutoff LED light poles around the area, and all lighting for both properties is within the acceptable range for the zoning ordinance and does not exceed 0.4 foot candles at the property lines. The applicant is providing evergreens and deciduous plantings throughout the property. There are 75% native plantings for the property, as well as foundation plantings, which meet the requirements in the zoning ordinance, as well as extensive landscaping along the western property line to help screen the ordering boards from the neighboring property, which happens to be a substation, but the ordinance still requires extensive landscaping. So the landscaping and lighting requirements are met. The rendering here shows a 18 to 24 foot tall car wash building with windows. The exterior of the building will contain ivory and slate CMU with a black band at the top of the windows throughout the building and the red awnings over the windows. Staff does have a recommendation that the face brick would be better to have it similar to other buildings in the area instead of the CMU. The second building the applicant is proposing is a 23-foot tall multi-tenant building, and the exterior of the building will contain face brick of white and butternut coloring, an outdoor patio, and awnings above the windows as shown here on the screen. A drive-through would wrap the building for one of the tenants to utilize. The overall appearance of the building and the quality of materials fit into the neighboring area. Additional design standards were required for a drive-through for both the restaurant and for the car wash, and those included additional landscaping, screening of the ordering boards, queuing lengths, and canopy designs if a canopy is provided. These standards are met, but staff does have one recommendation: wrapping the canopy pole with brick veneer if a canopy is provided for the car wash in the future, and that can be approved administratively. As part of the site plan review, the Plan Commission considers the facts and the findings in the zoning ordinance, which are provided in the staff report and are met. As previously mentioned, a car wash is allowed in the suburban commercial zoning district, but a drive-through for a car wash or a restaurant requires additional use permit. So the zoning ordinance requires all conditional uses to fulfill general standards for a conditional use permit request per section 13.1 217 D2, and that is spelled out in the staff report. But these drive-throughs meet the fact and findings for a conditional use permit. So with that, staff recommends the Plan Commission actions, recommend the Common Council approve the conditional use permit to allow a drive-through land use on Lot 12 in the Liberty Business Park, and approve the site plan to allow for the construction of a 5,700 square foot car wash and a 5,460 square foot restaurant and general retail building located on Lot 12 in the Liberty Business Park with the following conditions. The site plan approval shall become effective upon the applicant acquiring the property. And as of Friday, the additional requirement, the site plan shall become effective upon an improved traffic impact analysis by Dane County, and that is not in your packet, but that is what was added after talking with Dane County on Friday. So with that, staff is available to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Questions or comments or motions on the conditional use permit? Commissioner Lytle.
Thank you. A couple here. Is it common for us to approve a conditional use permit for drive-throughs as a pair? Or is there, thinking about other items on the agenda tonight, if the use of the Easterly building were to change, would the conditional use permit for the drive-through still apply if, for instance, it would change from a car wash to a food establishment, those kind of things? So interested in Ms. Holt's opinion of the benefits and drawbacks of having a combined CUP for two separate drive-throughs.
Ms. Holt?
From a staff perspective and writing the staff report, to be quite honest, it was easier to combine the two of them for the analysis and do it. For ease of a conditional use permit motion, those can be separated out easily. And if, as we discussed kind of with the condo plat thought process for the professional office, if the use is ceased, the use decides to stop being the use anymore. So the car wash became, I don't even know, a drive-through restaurant or something. Then we would want to do another conditional use analysis for that, because the queuing distances, as in the staff, I think the staff report contains a table that shows the queuing links in it for drive-throughs. It labels out different types of drive-throughs. So the bank takes up so many spaces, I think it's 2, but food takes up 5, and then the car wash takes up a different amount. So we would want to analyze them if these particular uses cease operation and something else came along in the future.
Thank you. And then one more. I think it's unfortunate that we weren't able to get some initial feedback from Dane County before tonight, but I know the question I raised was, given the proximity of this driveway to the PB&M intersection, if we couldn't add a signal there, or the traffic doesn't require a signal, is that someplace that the county and we would likely feel comfortable having a full access, left turns in and out? Or is this something that, just from looking things over, that it might potentially force us into some kind of right in, right out only option, or at least right out only from this development? And I don't know if Ms. Fisher has more, or Ms. Holt would make more sense to answer that.
So,
I can answer some of it.
yeah, I can talk about, so we have talked a little bit about this road. So there's a chance that we will need to install turn lanes as part of this, and I think all of that will be determined as part of the TIA. So as long as that's part of the approval, I think we can get that piece worked out. It is very close to that next signal, so you can't put another signal here. So I mean, we'd be looking at turn lanes, something of that nature.
And I'll just close that out by saying, you know, I would defer to our traffic professionals and the county as far as what's safe. But, you know, as long as the applicant's aware that some of this is still unknown at this point, and that could affect access both in and out, Just wanted to make sure that was understood by everybody.
I'll call on myself. The answer to Commissioner Lytle's question generated a question for me. So what does an approved TIA mean, basically? Because, like, if a TIA comes back and says you need to add a turn lane, and my opinion is I don't want the city to add a turn lane there, but if the project didn't require it, I'd be in favor of it, and if it did, I'd be against it. Like, how does that factor into the TIA?
So, so there is a current TIA as noted for Costco, so that one, it would just be updated with this different land use. And as part of that, we would just look at the traffic volumes. I guess from an approval standpoint, I'm not sure how that would affect approvals. I think it's something that sometimes with depending on the volumes of traffic, we could talk to the traffic engineer about, whether this would require, I mean, sometimes it's a judgment call, so, I think understanding that would be helpful, but, I mean, essentially, there are certain cases where we're going to require it just from a traffic standpoint, too.
Gotcha. I think that helps. And then I just want to state a general preference for the conditional use permits to be separate motions. Just I think that'll be cleaner. But other questions or comments or motions on 6A? Alder Posey and then Commissioner Hankard.
So I know it's the condition on the traffic analysis, but my question is, will it come back to us? Because I don't think it usually does. Because I will kind of summarize that is a really big concern of mine. I've watched people try to make the left out of Quick Trip right there. And more, we're seeing people just rush out there and have accidents or potential accidents. I don't know that we've had any, but there's some close calls that I've seen, and it makes me concerned if we're adding such a car-heavy business to the other side. If it was just one or the other, I think I'd feel a little more comfortable with having turn lanes and lights, or not lights, but turn lanes. But having such a car-heavy activity, especially on a Saturday, right there, at the same time Costco's busy, yeah, I'm really concerned about safety there.
Commissioner Hankard.
Yeah, so it's along the same lines. If we were to approve this, but we haven't seen the traffic impact analysis, so we would make it contingent upon the results of said analysis, and then Ms. Fisher just said sometimes it's a judgment call. Is the traffic analysis going to be fairly clear in that it says, okay, this development's fine as long as they put in X, Y, and Z? And if so, if we make our decision contingent upon said traffic analysis, and it is that clear, then it seems okay. But what if the developer says, geez, pushes back on right turn lanes or whatever, and then where it doesn't come back to us? So where are we? I guess I'm a little hesitant making a decision on something when I don't have all the information.
Yeah, that makes sense. So from the TIA standpoint, I think what it does provide is there is anecdotal data, but it will provide the actual traffic data. And based on that, then the traffic engineer can use we can double check the signal lines. It is very close to the other intersection, so it's very unlikely that we'd want to put anything there. But certainly if the volumes are such, we'd have to look at alternatives to make sure that this is within the realms of a safe intersection based on traffic standards. So essentially, it's going to let us know, what we'd anticipate, and then there's usually multiple, methods sometimes of solving that, and that's usually developed at the staff level. But it is, developed in line with, how we would work any other intersection in the city.
Okay, and I do have one other thing. Ms. Holt said that the parking for the retail part was less heavy and that therefore they were okay. I guess if they were to come back and say, well, we want to have 3 years from now, we want to change, we have a new tenant and it's a more traffic heavy thing or parking heavy use, is there any recourse for the city, or would that just be discussed at that time? Would that be another conditional use if they would come back with a different proposed use? I guess that could be to Ms. Holt or you, Luke, I'm not sure.
Ms. Holt?
So as with any tenant building in the city, we evaluate it off of when it's being constructed or when a conditional use is required. So for example, if, so the KSW building that's by Costco area, they have 4 tenants, and we evaluated the initial site plan off of what their proposed tenants would be. And we deemed that it had enough parking. Liberty Business Park, we've done the same thing. We've tried to keep a table with parking for those projects. And when the tenants turn over, we try to recalculate the parking, especially if it requires a conditional use permit to ensure that it's there. But, I mean, you're right. As soon as everything's built and something changes, there might not be enough parking, or in some cases, there may be too much parking, depending on what the use is. But we don't have really a hook to change anything unless it requires a conditional use permit for that particular land use and that tenant at that time.
All right, yeah, thank you very much.
I guess the only thing I would add is that I would assume that whoever's going to, rent out the building would talk to the owner about parking, and if it didn't work for them, then they probably just wouldn't, move in. Other questions or comments? Alder Posey.
And this is actually for the car wash side, and I don't know if the applicant wants to talk about this, but for the car wash on this one, how was the number of vacuums? It seems really like a lot of them for some of the ones I've seen. Usually it's about half of that maybe. So I was really curious about that amount of hard surface and how that's been determined, how many of those are needed.
If the applicant wants to answer the question.
Yeah, they were not able to be here tonight, so he's going to text them real quick to get you an answer, so sorry about that. But the other, if I can address some of the other issues.
Only the question,
Oh,
sorry.
the question? All right, sorry, I will get back to you on that in a second.
Okay. All right, well, someone think of something to say while they get an answer. Commissioner Lytle.
So, having used the car wash on Grand Canyon, I think it is, essentially, as opposed to a Quick Trip or a gas station style car wash, you actually have free use of vacuums after you've paid for a car wash. So theoretically, every person that goes through the car wash would have the opportunity to pull into one of the vacuum stalls and vacuum out their cars. I'm assuming this is the same business model that this would have. And I mean, I haven't watched these close enough, but I have seen where, 80% of the vacuum stalls were occupied. So I do think it's kind of this freebie that they throw in. So would be used more than you typically see at Quick Trip or something like that when folks are adding quarters or swiping their card for vacuum time. Why I decided to volunteer that, I'm not sure, but just.
Alder Posey, or did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I did, real
Okay.
quick. Because doing the quick count, it appears like every single one of those cars in that queue would be in that parking lot. They have about 20 or so parking spaces. So that's where, I don't know that that's always needed at all the time, and that's a lot of hard surface, and I know that's something we've been really focused on. So that's why I brought that question, and hopefully we'll get an answer here shortly.
Commissioner Hankard, and then Commissioner Wood.
Well, I'll jump on the anecdotal train with Pat, and I've spent a lot of time out in the Denver metro area, and they have more of these than they do here. And I think it's almost a brand thing to have those big swooping vacuum things, and it gives the place a look. It seems to be a thing. I don't think it's these folks have overcalculated necessarily. It seems to be the industry standard.
Commissioner Wood.
So, this might be a question for the applicant. So with the concerns of the additional traffic, do we know how many cars are generated, like how many cars go through the wash every day? And what?
Yeah, if you could answer, counts.
The first question is that they want, excuse me, the First question is about the amount of vacuums, is that they have 20 because they don't want any stacking. They don't want cars to stack up at all, so that number does work for them. So each car can pull into the vacuum location, vacuum out their car, takes 3 to 5 minutes, and then move on. So they have that many because they don't want any stacking or congestion on the site.
Have they done any analysis as far as usage? Because
Yeah,
we're
well-
obviously looking at having a mirrored situation potentially just up the road. And yeah,
So they have, and so that's why they had me here tonight. So they are interested, they're more than interested, they're ready to move forward. So, and to answer your question, during weekdays from 4 to 6, there's approximately 120 cars. And then on Saturdays from 11 to 1, there's approximately 150 cars.
Can you repeat Saturdays?
150 from 11 to 1. And those are the peak times.
Thank you.
Alder Posey.
and where did those numbers come from?
It came from the tenant.
Okay. Do they, I know you're stuck having to face me with this, but I'd be curious where, numbers are numbers, but it would be interesting to know the background to where that came from and where those numbers, that analysis.
Okay. That's the information, that's their numbers, that's what they base their business plan on, their business model. So, that's what they gave me.
Yep.
I can't-
That's respectable.
I'm not going
Thank
to make
you.
anything up, so that's.
Yep, no, thank you for
Okay.
that.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? We are on the conditional use permits. All right, I will make, I guess, the motion myself so they can be divided up. I move that we recommend to the Common Council to approve the conditional use permit to allow a drive-through through Lot 12 in the Liberty Business Park, specifically for the fast food area as marked on page 5 of the staff report, which is the western building. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Lytle. Motion before the body. Questions or comments on this motion? Commissioner Hankard.
Is this motion contingent upon the results of the traffic impact analysis?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding was that was associated with the site plan review. Ms. Holt? Or Ms. Fisher?
Correct.
Okay. So we would need the condition on 6B then.
Okay, thank you.
Questions or comments on this motion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of recommending to the Common Council to approve the conditional use permit to allow a drive-through on Lot 12 in the Liberty Business Park, specifically the fast food area as marked on page 5, the westernmost buildings, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no?
No.
And that motion passes with Alder Posey voting no. We are now talking about the conditional use permit for the car wash area, which is the eastern portion of the lot. Questions, comments, or motions on this one? Alder Posey.
And I'll just add my comment in here is, with everything I've heard tonight, I'm just not comfortable at this point because we don't have that traffic side. I'm excited to see that space get filled in, but that safety piece is a big concern of mine, and moving forward without that is, I think, where I'm stuck. So once I would hear what the plans were, I think I'd feel more comfortable.
Other questions, comments, or motions? Commissioner Hankard.
Yeah, sorry to belabor this and piggybacking on Alder Posey's comment. So when we get to the site plan review for each of these that have now been split, you're saying at that point, a contingency upon the traffic impact analysis can be added.
Right. And it's also my understanding that, and again, Ms. Holt or Ms. Fisher, correct me if I'm wrong, that people could vote to approve the conditional use permit, but could vote against the site plan. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Or you could do the opposite too. So yes, they're all separate entities.
Okay. Questions, comments, or motions for the car wash drive-through? Commissioner Lytle.
So I think I share concerns about how this will work traffic-wise. I do, as I mentioned previously, put a lot of faith in staff and our resources with the city engineer, with traffic and safety. So that's why I feel comfortable proceeding without full information. I would definitely prefer to have known exactly what the access is going to be like at this stage. But I also, think I feel like a fair playing field here between two rather unique parallel projects is important. And so I would like to make a motion that we recommend the council approve the conditional use permit for the drive-through for the eastern building on the property for a car wash use.
Motion by Commissioner Lytle. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Hanker. Motion before the body. Questions or comments on this motion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of granting the conditional use permit for the car wash area, the easternmost building, say aye.
Aye.
Well, let's do it, raise hands. All right, all those opposed? And I have that being recommend denial to the council with a 3-2 vote. Did you get the roll, Mr. Ehrlich?
Yes, I did, Mr. Mayor.
All right, with that, we'll move on to 6B, which is a discussion and possible action regarding the site plan review for a car wash, restaurant, and general retail on Lot 12 in the Liberty Business Park. Questions, comments, or motions on this item? Oh, sorry, Ms. Holt.
Thank you. I know you took a roll call and you said it was 2-3 denial, and we have reasoning on why it is a denial for the 3 that voted denial.
Are you saying that you would like us to give our reasons for voting against it?
Yes, because when the council asks, when it
fair.
goes to the common council, it's helpful for that.
Yeah, I just had some general concerns about traffic at the site and just potentially, I guess too many drive-throughs in that area. Anything to add, Alder Posey, and then Commissioner Wood?
Yeah, I added my comments earlier, but also, again, just the amount of traffic and traffic flow through there. And I'd like to know a little bit more about the data that they pulled for their analysis as far as how much surface area and parking spaces we needed for those vacuums and everything else, if it just, yeah.
Commissioner Wood?
I would echo the same. While I trust the staff, without the additional information, it feels a little bit like a cart before the horse type situation. And just knowing how busy that intersection is already, adding all that additional without the information concerns me.
Any follow-up, Ms. Holt?
No, thank you.
Excellent. Okay, we are back to 6B, which is the site plan review. Questions, comments, or motions? Commissioner Lytle and then myself.
Ms. Holt, I am trying to recall situations like this in the past where due to a lack of information or something that potentially could be resolved over the next month or so, is there an option to, so that will go, the conditional use permit will go to the council with the two differing recommendations from the Plan Commission. As far as the site plan, that approval happens here exclusively. But knowing that the site plan probably is, as it currently exists, is null and void if the council were to agree with our recommendation to deny the second conditional use permit for the drive-through. Would we either with your advice or with the applicant's advice, hold off on voting on the site plan until the council has taken action on the conditional use permits and/or had some additional information from Dane County about the traffic impact?
Ms. Holt?
We have postponed a decision a month or 2 months until we received information from another governing body that had to give more data. So for the most recent one I can think of, and I don't remember which way we did it, I think we approved for the daycare. We postponed the daycare to get more information before we made a final decision, and we approved at that time the conditional use permit. As you said, the conditional use permit did not go before the council because they wanted to make sure the site plan was approved before moving forward. Otherwise, they did not need the conditional use permit in that particular case for that daycare. In this instance, you are more than welcome to do the same thing in the sense of and I can't see anybody, just to give you a heads up, so I can't see if anybody's terrified when I speak or what's going on. The door follow remote. You can postpone it, and we can wait for Dane County to review the traffic impact analysis to get the more information to make a decision and bring it back at that time as a complete package to formulate a recommendation either direction for final approval on the site plan. Or you can conditionally approve it for the site plan the same way.
I had one quick follow-up to Commissioner Lytle's question. Do we have a timeline? Because my understanding is with some of these approvals, basically we have to act within 60 days or it's automatically approved or whatever the timeline is. Is this one of them? Obviously, we want to get an answer as fast as possible, whether it's yes or no. But are we under a timeline for this?
I believe when we did the daycare, we needed to have it, a decision made within 2 months. So my assumption is it's the same rules for this. I'm not looking at off the cuff, but we would need to make a decision by the next Plan Commission meeting if it was postponed.
Gotcha. I get. No, unless there's a question. So, yeah. So, I guess my preference would be to potentially delay it, one, to see what the council does in regard to the conditional use permit, and one, to get the traffic study back. I know that's probably frustrating for the applicant, but I don't know, with the way the traffic thing is out there and with the accidents that have occurred at the PB and M intersection, I know there's been at least one that I've heard about, potentially more. I would feel a lot more comfortable seeing the TIA from Dane County. But I'd be open to what other people's thoughts are. So questions, comments, motions to postpone, or motions to talk about it tonight? Commissioner Lytle.
All right, one more procedural question, and I know we're putting you on the spot, Catherine. The opportunity to submit a revised conditional use permit for the drive-through if the current conditional use permit recommendation from us is followed by the council. Is there a limit for how soon that could be resubmitted? Or if there's a change reflecting some of the concerns that address some of the concerns mentioned tonight, they could resubmit the conditional use permit after, for instance, traffic data was in?
I believe if a conditional use permit is denied, it doesn't move forward at all. It can't be resubmitted with new information until a year later, and it has to have extenuating circumstances of why it was changed. We have in the past not taken, so typically the process is whatever's discussed at Plan Commission that gets recommended to council goes the following Monday to Common Council, just to kind of keep everything tidy. We have postponed taking things to Common Council for final approval until other things have been resolved. We try not to delay it. I think the conditional use permit only has 60 days to get a final decision made on it too, similar to if a postponement was done for the site plan. Now, with all of that said and done, I don't know the contingencies of what the applicant has on the property for purchasing it, or, you know, how long they have their due diligence and things like that. So my assumption is they've been talking to us for a while. So they may be close to their time frame, the end of their time frame for proceeding with this property too. So, I mean, I know that doesn't affect your decisions, but it does impact other timelines too.
Commissioner Lytle?
I personally would like to understand the applicant's preferences, given the way this has been shaken out. So specifically, the question is, would you want to proceed with getting a vote from the council on the conditional use permit, given a delay in both the site plan and the traffic impact?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for asking. Hey, how about this? I hear you, and I want to get you answers. I was disappointed myself to hear that the tenant didn't show up tonight. So I do, you deserve answers, so I get it. So let's do this. If we can push off or continue the site plan, and Kathy, if we can push off the not plan, the board, the village board, or the next meeting, the
City
council,
council,
excuse me,
yeah.
city council. I do these almost every week. So if we can push that off so that I can get you the the traffic impact, and we have some idea where we're at, and if it takes another, we'll get it done before 60 days. I know the holidays are coming in, but I appreciate you considering and trying to work with us, and having half the answers or half, it's hard to make a commitment to that. So I would recommend if you can just continue it, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess then, does anyone want to make a motion? Alder Posey.
Give it a shot. I'd like to make a motion to continue this issue for the next Plan Commission meeting, and is that all we need?
I guess we could, I mean, to be 100% safe, you could say, oh, the next Plan Commission meeting or sooner. I don't think we're going to have to call an emergency meeting, but it would leave us the option.
The next Plan Commission meeting or sooner, to allow for additional information.
Got it. Motion by Alder Posey. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Wood. Motion before the body. Questions or comments on the motion? Commissioner Hankard.
Does the motion need to include any advice or whatever to the council that they also wanted, I think, the council not to take up?
That's at the discretion of the applicant. So I know there's been, in the past, generally, if an applicant's like, we want to wait, staff just pulls it off the agenda. Because if the applicant's not ready to go, there's, you know,
Just making sure there's not a gap there.
yeah. No, that's good. I just had one general question for staff, actually. How confident are you that Dane County Highway is going to get this TIA done in time?
So they're just going to review the TIA. So it's really going to be, there's two options. They can have their engineer update the Costco TIA. We could have our traffic engineer do it as well, just depending on timing, just to get it done quickly. Either way would work. So it's really getting it done and submitted to Dane County. But just having it and looking at it internally would be helpful. I agree.
Yeah, it would definitely be helpful for me sitting on the Plan Commission, and I hope not to be in the same position in January where we're like, gosh, I sure wish we knew. But anyways, motion before the body. Questions or comments on the motion? All right. All those in favor of delaying the site plan review until the next plan commission meeting, unless there's a sooner plan commission meeting, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. And that motion passes. We'll move on to item 7, which is regarding the conditional use permit for a drive-through on Lot 28 in Liberty Business Park located north of County Highway M and south of Laser Street. Ms. Holt, can we get a brief overview before the public hearing?
Sure. A conditional use permit is requested for a drive-through on Lot 28 in the Liberty Business Park. The public hearing notices were mailed out to the property owners within 250 feet of the property. A public hearing notice sign was posted on the property, and the public hearing was advertised in the paper similar to the previous ones.
Thank you. With that, I will move that we open a public hearing regarding this conditional use permit. Is there a second? Seconded by Alder Posey. All those in favor of opening the public hearing regarding the conditional use permit for a drive-through on Lot 28 in Liberty Business Park located north of County Highway M and south of Laser Street, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. And the public hearing is open at 7:34 p.m. If anyone wants to talk about this conditional use permit, now would be the time to do so. Seeing nobody approaching the microphone, motion to close the public hearing would be in order. Motion by Commissioner Henkert. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Wood. All those in favor of closing the public hearing on this topic, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And the public hearing is closed at 7:34 p.m. Ms. Holt.
Okay, the property is located on Lot 28, which is shown in yellow in the Liberty Business Park. The vacant property is approximately 2 acres and is zoned suburban commercial. An initial review was done in September of this year by the Plan Commission. Comments from the Commission included how the runoff from the car wash would work, concerns about how the water will affect the sewer system and the extension of Laser Street, asked the applicant to come back with specifics on how the water is treated and recycled. Additional vegetation screening should be added, and the garage door should be cream like the rest of the building. The property, as with the other one, is part of the 2010 Southeast Neighborhood Plan, which confirmed that commercial development would occur on this property as well as guidance for landscaping. The applicant is proposing a 5,000 square foot car wash with 2 to 3 employees. The building meets the bulk and setback requirements, especially since with this one, again, there's this 42-foot highway setback requirement. Access will be from extending Laser Street, as well extending the utilities and the sidewalk prior to any development occurring on this property. Being different from the previous applicant, a traffic impact analysis is not required for this property, as the city staff reviewed the queuing and the potential backups from the proposed land use, as the city controls access to Laser Street, as opposed to the county controlling access to County Highway M. So a total of 30 parking stalls will be used for the vacuums and 2 parking stalls for the employees. Similar to the other one, they are going to be using, a car wash would require about 15 to 70 parking stalls, but staff believes that the 30 vacuum access parking stalls are sufficient. An electric vehicle charging station is not required here because it's under the 15 parking stalls. Landscaping and photometric plans were submitted as part of this application. 7 22-foot tall light poles internal to the site are proposed, plus 15 wall-mounted lights around the car wash area. So all lighting in the acceptable range for the property and does not affect the neighboring properties, as it does not exceed 0.4 foot candles at the property line. Staff does recommend the applicant dim the lighting levels when the business is not in is not open. The landscaping plans included evergreens and deciduous plantings throughout the property. The applicant is providing a mix of plantings along the western property line to help screen the ordering boards from the neighboring property. And the applicant has met the 75% native plantings for the property. So staff is supportive of the lighting and landscaping plans. So the applicant is proposing a 30-foot tall, 5,000 square foot building with windows. The exterior of the building will contain split face CMU and brick veneer with a blue metal band along the roof line. A blue canopy is provided over the ordering boards for the entrance to the car wash area. The vacuum pump house and dumpster enclosures located in the southern portion of the property matches the overall design of the building and has appropriate landscaping surrounding it. Staff recommends per previous plan commissioner's comment that the garage doors match the cream exterior portion of the building instead of that stark white. And as part of the site plan review, the plan commission shall consider the facts and findings of the zoning ordinance, which are provided in the staff report and are met. As previously mentioned, a car wash is allowed in the suburban commercial zoning district, but the drive-through requires a conditional use permit. The zoning ordinance requires conditional uses to fill the general standards for all conditional use requests, and this one meets the facts and findings for this. So staff did receive one comment for this property that the applicant's plans misspelled Laser Street. So I'm just noting that because that's the only one we received. With that, staff recommends the Plan Commission actions. Recommend the Common Council approve the conditional use permit to allow a drive-through land use on Lot 28 in the Liberty Business Park with the following condition. The conditional use permit shall become effective upon the applicant acquiring the property. 2, approve the site plan to allow for the construction of a 5,000 square foot car wash located on Lot 28 in the Liberty Business Park with the following conditions. The site plan shall become effective upon the applicant acquiring the property. And prior to issuance of building permits, the applicant shall enter into a development agreement with the city for the future public improvements for Laser Street. So with that, staff's here to answer questions, and I believe the applicant is also there.
All right, we will take up the conditional use permit to allow a drive-through on Lot 28 in the Liberty Business Park first. Questions, comments, or motions on this item? Commissioner Hanker.
It's a little, well, not off topic, but it is a little odd that our zoning allows for a car wash, but you have to get a conditional use permit to get a drive-through. I mean, don't you have to drive through a car wash? No?
I guess you could push through.
I can answer that.
Okay.
Yeah, there's styles of car wash where you drive in and then you wash your car with the wand. So they have multiple stalls across. That's what our code allows for. If we're doing drive-throughs, obviously, we have a queue line and things like that. So that's the difference.
I didn't know that either. Questions, comments, or motions on this one? Commissioner Lytle.
I'll make a motion that we recommend the Common Council approve the conditional use permit to allow for drive-through land use on Lot 28 of Liberty Business Park with the condition that it shall become effective upon the applicant acquiring the property.
Motion by Commissioner Lytle. Is there a second? Seconded by Alder Posey. Motion before the body. Questions or comments on the motion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of approving the conditional use permit, or recommending, all those in favor of recommending to the Common Council to approve the conditional use permit to allow a drive-through on Lot 28 in Liberty Business Park with the conditions specified in the packet, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion passes. With that, we move on to 7B, which is a discussion and possible action regarding site plan review for a 5,000 square foot car wash on Lot 28 in the Liberty Business Park. Anything to add, Ms. Holt?
No?
I'll start out with one quick question. In regarding to the staff recommendation to the applicant to dim the lights, is there any way to potentially put that into the conditions? Because I know we had this come up at a different site, and I think our wording was a little bit vague, and the applicant wasn't actually sure what dimming meant, because there's different ways to do it, and they wanted to be in compliance. But do we have any stock language on this?
No, we do not have any stock language on it. When the building is a land use that's solely that type of land use, as opposed to the previous one where it was the restaurant and the car wash on top of another retail use, we try when it's just one land use to ask them to dim it. We don't define loosely how low they have to go, but I mean, for security purposes, we know they want to have lighting. We just don't feel the need to have it lit up, like a airstrip to say, come here, when they're not open any longer. And, a lot of the LED lights can be dimmed. It's just a matter of you don't need them on as much, and it's on a timer. So in the past, when an applicant has asked me off the cuff what we mean, I usually try to tell them that we'd like it dim when they're not in operation an hour after they're closed, and then they can, brighten it back up an hour before they open so that their employees can get there and still be safe.
Gotcha. Thank you for the clarification. Other questions, comments, or motions? Alder Posey.
Well, in all fairness, I am going to ask the same question of this applicant about how you determined the number of vacuum spaces and queuing area.
If the applicant would like to answer. And if you could introduce yourself too.
Good evening. I'm Nicholas Teresium. I'm here for the applicant. In regards to the vacuum stall count, it's what they, I guess it's their preference to have 30, between 20 and 30, depending on what the site will allow. They have found with their other sites that they have that 20 is just enough, bare minimum, but 30, any more than 30 is just too much. It would be underutilized. So it's dependent on their other sites and what they've seen in their use.
So have they done any analysis of this location itself? Because I noticed in the packet that you provided, there were some that had 2 lanes for queuing, and this one has 3. And what's being anticipated as far as usage? Because the thing that's driving me nuts is empty space.
Right.
We have empty commercial space, we have empty space. And I don't want to see things built. If you can tell me that, yeah, we've determined that this is going to be the amount of people we're going to have coming through, we need that to make sure that we're serving our customers, I'd love to hear that. But hearing, we think this is what'll work because it's what's worked elsewhere, I would love to hear more specifics, just because I don't want to see empty space. Like having big places that are not used is driving me and everybody who lives in Verona nuts.
Right. No, I understand. And from my understanding, they have an internal marketing team that determines, they essentially tell us how many parking stalls and what they're kind of expecting, and depending on which site and location they're looking at. If you'd like, I can request that and have that sent to.
I'd love to receive that.
Okay.
And maybe, Catherine, Ms. Holt, was this part of any conversation? How was this presented to you as far as the site? Did that question make sense?
It was, yeah, it does.
Okay, good.
From a site perspective, staff level, we were more focused on getting their, the initial plan had their drive aisle. After you go from the 3 lanes to the 1 lane, that was all in the 42-foot highway setback area originally. So we were focused on pushing that out of it. We really had not considered that it would be overbuilt for the queuing lanes, mostly because they said it would be about, oh, I'll have to look for Jess Billmeyer's email, but it seemed like it was going to be about 100 cars per hour traveling through there.
Okay. I'd love to hear, like I said, where the numbers are coming from, just because knowing that area, and I travel over there every Saturday and quite a bit, actually, even during the week, is that space and that usage and where those numbers are actually coming from. So I would really like to know more about that. But I do want to say, and I appreciate the feedback we got in the letter from the applicant, because they did talk more about the reclamation tanks and everything else, and I know I had a big question about that last time around. So, thank you.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments, or motions? Commissioner Lidle.
Well, we have you. I guess one of the comments from the initial review was trying to be consistent with the color scheme of the cream versus the white. It's tough to tell in the rendering whether that was a conscious choice of a more bright white for the garage door, not matching the CMU color or the brick color. And is that going to be a problem as far as you know from the applicant matching that based on the previous recommendation?
No, it won't be a problem at all. It was the print, essentially. It is actually tan or a beige color. It's just when printed out, it appears a little bit more white. So, but it's in the rendering, it's tan, and it will be tan when constructed.
Great. The only reason I mention that is, I don't think that's something that I think we need to add a condition to the approval, but we have had a situation where people built differently than what was approved in their plan, and we actually made people go back and actually match what was in their plan. So just making sure everyone's aware that that's something I think is important to follow staff and initial feedback recommendation on.
I will just add, the person who had to change the door was pretty mad about it, but that's how it goes. Other questions, comments, or motions? Alder Posey.
Sorry, as a follow-up on mine, would there be options to change things because again, I'm really concerned about things just being empty, especially when we're talking about hard surface that's not needed. Is that something that can be changed after this through staff or through us?
Ms.
Just
Holt?
having that same conversation I had already.
If you have something that you want to be changed, you need to say that now as part of this approval review process, because this is the site plan. If it was we have other plans later in the evening that are initial plans, and those are for feedback. But this is whatever decisions you make, this is the last decision-making process for this plan.
Thank you.
I guess this is a general thing and not related to the applicant, but we do have a vacant big box store ordinance where, for example, if the Costco was empty for more than a year, they have to pay to demolish it. And obviously, this wouldn't apply to this applicant, but could staff potentially look at something where if a site was abandoned and didn't fall under those parameters we've already set out, we could start putting conditions on their site plans in the future, so that we don't have empty space, or at least not empty space for a really long time. Like, would that be all right, Ms. Holt, for staff to look at?
I can look into it. That would be a legal discussion with the city attorney too.
Yeah.
Because I know we did it for the Costco and Festival Foods because of the size requirements of how much that is. I I have not seen anything of that caliber for lower square footages, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I just have not seen it to date.
Gotcha. Again, a discussion totally for the future and not for today. All right, we're still talking about site plan review. Commissioner Lytle.
I guess just looking at the staff report, where our zoning ordinance says, based on a 5,000 square foot car wash, we'd expect to see 17 to 50 parking stalls. And for me, if I were the applicant and I saw that and I proposed 30, I'd feel pretty safe that I was, following the standards of the city. So obviously there are situations where certain, I know it's a central vac system, but maybe certain equipment may be out of order, and so instead of having 30 stalls, they only have 20. I think where I agree with Alder Posey is it would be nice to be able to phase this, so we constructed 20 parking stalls first, and then, when the need was shown, we added 10 more. But, I think this is more one of those situations where I would prefer to be consistent with what the zoning ordinance has for a parking range, and this seems to be smack in the middle of that. So I'm comfortable with the parking, even if I personally would prefer to see it added as needed. I would be comfortable with this.
Other questions, comments? Alder Posey.
Yeah, I'll just make the comment. I mean, at this point, I think, obviously, I didn't address this issue earlier, or these concerns earlier. So I am comfortable moving forward on this one, since we did look at it previously, and obviously I don't have some of the other concerns of the traffic that I have with the other. I would still like the information on how those numbers have been determined, just because if you're pulling numbers out that are based on other communities, not with the growth that we're currently having, or with the growth that we're currently having, I'd like to know where those numbers, if you're going to have numbers, they should have some background to them. So hopefully that can go for everybody in the future.
Other questions, comments, or motions? Commissioner Wood.
So this might be more for city staff. With these lots that are much heavier in pavement, have we looked at doing more pervious surfaces with like bricks or something different than just asphalt or concrete?
Ms. Holt? Or Ms. Fisher, actually?
I'll go to Ms. Fisher.
Yeah, I can address that. So, I mean, we don't prescribe anything in the ordinance. We do, that would be one method of reducing impervious area. So this area, or this development was part of the Liberty Business Park, and so it does have a regional stormwater management component. And so the way we've handled these is if they are developing to what was planned, like basically at or below impervious levels, and the impervious levels that were planned were fairly high, just given the type of development, then they still need to provide infiltration, thermal control, just essentially recharge on their site. Like the smaller events, they will essentially treat. The larger events are going to be treated by the regional basin. So, pervious pavement is, it has sort of a varied track record in Wisconsin, and so there's a little bit of risk involved with it, and so that's something that it's certainly the technology continues to improve, and we have seen it, in the Dane County area used successfully too. So,
Cool, thank you.
Other questions, comments, or motions? I'll call on myself. I will move that we approve the site plan to allow for the construction of a 5,000 square foot car wash located on Lot 28 in the Liberty Business Park with the following conditions. A, the site plan shall become effective upon the applicant acquiring the property. And B, prior to the issuance of building permits, the applicant shall enter into a development agreement with the city for future public improvements for Laser Street. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Wood. Motion before the body. Questions or comments on this motion? Seeing shaking heads. All those in favor of approving the site plan review for a car wash, all those in favor of approving the site plan review for a 5,000 square foot car wash on Lot 28 in Liberty Business Park with the conditions specified in the packet, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion passes. I'm going to have a 10-minute break so I can get a drink of water because we got two pretty interesting topics left, and I think we could all use a little bit of a break. So we'll reconvene here at 8:08 p.m. Thank you. We will proceed to, I believe, item 8, which is a discussion and possible action regarding an initial review for a 120-unit multifamily extended stay and a 150-person event center located at 509 West Verona Avenue. Ms. Holt?
Yes. There we go. The property is located at 509 West Verona Avenue, which is shown in yellow, and is part of the Sugar Creek Commons development. An initial review by the Plan Commission is being requested as the previous approvals have expired and the applicant wants feedback from the Plan Commission. So this slide shows the entire Sugar Creek Commons development. In the staff report, there is an extensive list of history for what was reviewed and approved by the Plan Commission and the Common Council. Specific to this particular application, as part of the history, a 120-room hotel and a 350-person event center were approved in 2019 with parking and height exemptions, but as said earlier, the approval has since expired. Although not the main focus of the initial plan, the applicant is proposing a garage to be used by JSD over here with the letter E on it. The 2,300 square foot building will house 6 survey trucks and become a flex office workshop area. This is located in the rear of the property, and staff would request more information regarding the design and function of this space and subsequent submittals. But the focus of the initial review is really the 120-unit multifamily extended stay building with a 150-person event center. Access to the property will be from a shared access point on West Verona Avenue. The applicant is proposing 164 parking spaces for this property with 44 surface spaces and 120 underground spaces, but will be deficient by 16 parking spaces for the multifamily extended stay portion of the proposal per the zoning ordinance, as it requires a minimum of 180 parking stalls. So the event center requires a minimum of 50 parking spaces for 150 people, which that's not provided. So the applicant total is short 66 parking stalls to meet the minimum parking requirements for the zoning ordinance, which were updated in May of 2021. So, but one key thing is the applicant in their application submitted the following narrative. Currently, buildings B and C, the multifamily units are approximately 98% leased, and the 11,000 square foot of office commercial space is occupied, and the surface lot remains 60% capacity. And the underground parking is being utilized less than the 1-to-1 stall requirement that we have. So while there's sufficient parking on the neighboring property, the 11,000 square foot of commercial space is still available to be leased, as well as finishing construction for what's shown on the slide, building D, which is a 141 unit apartment building. So the parking demand is based on the type of land use that we previously discussed tonight, which is unknown for the 11,000 square foot commercial space at this time. So we don't know how much parking that particular tenant or potentially multiple tenants would need. So the applicant is proposing a 4-story multi-family extended stay building of similar design to the existing Sugar Creek Commons buildings, and a 2-story event center with the rooftop terrace. Staff did receive 2 emails which were forwarded to the Plan Commission and the applicant regarding the interaction between the indoor and outdoor spaces, as they do not seem to be well integrated. This person also recommended increasing the event center to 200 people instead of the 150 proposed to accommodate most wedding guests and potentially use space from the adjoining 3rd floor. Both people in emails were supportive of the event space and felt it is a needed land use. Staff is supportive of the redevelopment of this vacant property, but we have concerns over the reduction in the on-site parking, as this is the last property to be developed for Sugar Creek Commons, and absorption of parking elsewhere could be problematic. Previously, when we reviewed the hotel and the event center, that was going to be built prior to some of the apartment buildings being constructed. So one thought was that we could adjust the apartment building parking requirements as needed to accommodate the event center parking. But it's gone in the opposite order this time. So with that, staff recommends the Plan Commission review the submitted material and provide feedback to the applicant in addition to the specific direction for the following items. Excuse me. Will land uses for this property, the event center, extended stay, and apartments be supported? And if not, which ones are supported out of these options? Will a reduction in parking be supported? And if so, loosely a range of how many parking stalls would be supported. And again, this is the initial plan. So if you have ideas or wants or needs from design, landscaping, land use, anything you can think of that pops in your head, now is the best time to bring it up, because they will at some point come in with subsequent applications for trying to move a project forward.
Thank you for that explanation. I guess I'll call on myself just to get started on the feedback. As far as in regard to the, first question about the land use, yeah, I absolutely support the land use here. It's good to see the lot be filled in, and I think this is a good use. And I believe the original plans had an event center, and I know other people were interested in it as well. I agree with the public feedback that I would rather see it be around 200 instead of 150. So I would like to see that get figured out, because like I said, I support the use in general, but like a lot of this stuff comes down to details and how well it's executed. Because even a good use poorly executed is not going to work out. So like I would like to see it be up to 200 people. In regard to the parking, that is a yes, contingent upon having a plan to deal with overflow. So if the applicant, for example, were able to work out a shared parking agreement with the St. Vinny's next door, so that after St. Vinny's closes, if people are at the event center, they could park in that lot, because my understanding is that events would be typically taking place in the evening, or perhaps if there was adjacent commercial development that would have hours that are opposite of the event center. But basically, or whatever it could be, basically as long as there's a plan, because looking at West Verona Avenue, there's not anywhere for overflow parking to go. And I know when people are trying to get to an event, a conference, whatever, sometimes they might just say, oh, the heck with it, I'm just going to park wherever. And that could potentially be not good for the area. So that's my feedback at the moment. What do other planning commissioners think? Commissioner Wood.
So I do like the use of it. I like the event space. I do share similar sentiments with the outdoor and indoor being essentially disconnected. In my day job, I host a lot of client events, and I know from hosting a client event, this would make working the room incredibly difficult and turn me away from even wanting to rent the space. So I would encourage some way to either have the first floor indoor space and then also like a smaller indoor space on the rooftop of some capacity. Obviously share concerns with the parking. I think if there was a way that you could make it more obvious that overflow could go to those other buildings, anyways, the other buildings at Sugar Creek Commons, that would help. But yeah, I mean, I like the idea of having the event space there. I think it's a kind of a cool thing to overlook all that. Just want to see it executed a little bit differently.
Other feedback? Alder Posey, then Commissioner Hankard.
Yeah, I'm absolutely in support of the event space. Would also say at least 200 attendees space. Maybe it's a space that could be split so that it can allow for smaller events as well as bigger events. Parking is, that is probably my biggest concern with this location, just because I've been through seeing our high school parking lot get entirely filled up. Who knew it could happen? But it did, and then people were outflowed onto side streets and having to cross and everything else, and there was no plan. So actually, other businesses got impacted and everything else because people just found places to park and it didn't matter. So it would absolutely be a need to have a plan, and I would actually say that St. Vinny's may not be your option because on a Saturday afternoon, Sunday afternoon, St. Vinny's is packed. So those two would, the evening's great, but afternoons it's really busy. The other thing was any rooftop sort of projection of audio, just make sure, and maybe Commissioner Hankert can share his opinion on this. But I know other times we've looked at this for other properties along West Verona. Some of the neighbors have been concerned about heading that way, so if you could make it head towards the other park, but I think having a rooftop area would be great. As far as everything else, as long as you have enough parking, that is my largest concern with this location.
Commissioner Hankard.
Two suggestions on the parking. One would be JSD could initially forego their stall there, Building E, go rent something else. I realize it's not as convenient for them, but they could. And then perhaps in a year, if you can prove that through some metric that parking is not a problem, then go ahead and build your maintenance, whatever it is. And then I echo the St. Vinny's being maybe not the best option, but the church, isn't the church just off to the right of the screen here?
Yeah, and Legion.
And that parking lot is quite often not full. Maybe it's a Sunday thing, and that might be a better use. And then secondly, could the applicant explain to me, I don't know what this extended stay multifamily business model is. Could you maybe just shed a couple words on that?
Yeah, so in general, the extended stay multifamily or extended stay hotel is sometimes what it's called too. It's really the middle ground between the two, between a traditional hotel where you're there for 1 to 2 nights to multifamily where you sign a traditional year lease. There's a lot of room in between there of where it could be. Right now, I think the plan would be more of 1 month to 6 months, something like that. From our conversations with Epic, they have employees that stay in hotel rooms for multiple months at a time. So we think that this could be an option for them. Also, just anecdotally, jumping on the anecdotal train, I guess. I have a friend who just moved here from Los Angeles, and they stayed in an extended stay location on the east side of Madison for several months before they found permanent housing. So it kind of works for transitional uses. And then, so that's kind of how it works in general. And the nice thing about it is, right now the building kind of showed half of it or a third of it being one color and the other color being multifamily, traditional. Maybe it's floor by floor. And if it works really well, it could expand. Versus if it's a hotel, it's very difficult without major renovations to convert it, but it could go to multifamily or extended, say, multifamily either way, with more flexibility is really the main thing. Any other follow-up questions to that?
No, that helps. I've been a part of some long business meetings where you're there in a town for a week or two, and staying in a place like this is a little more geared to that longer term, and it's better. It's better than a traditional hotel.
Right.
So-
I think having a kitchen is nice, even if it is only a week, something like
Sure,
that. That's a
okay.
personal thing.
Yeah, thank you.
Other feedback from the Planning Commission. Alder Posey.
I'll also share that I really like the green space in the center courtyard. Hopefully that'll be a nice view for those potentially open doors that were in the renderings and photos. And hopefully that can maybe even expand if you can figure out how to do that, just because I know that, I don't think there's any type of playground space. I know we've asked for that with other multifamily before, and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe Ms. Holt, but I don't know if I saw, being multifamily, how trash would be dealt with if we are looking at this being that kind of a location as opposed to a hotel.
Got it. So the trash for Sugar Creek Commons has been dealt with in the parking garages, from what I understand, in the underground part of it, and then it gets rolled out. And then the commercial part of it is actually at the surface lot there.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Wood?
I did have one thing I forgot to ask about the event space. I'm presuming stairs/elevator to the rooftop, is that its own entrance from the extended stay/multifamily housing, or are those shared in some capacity? Thank you.
All separate for the record. You're on the microphone. Other feedback from the Plan Commission? Commissioner Lytle?
I don't think I have much to add. I do agree with the other comments regarding parking and having contingency options for that. I think building on the idea of space for the apartment, multifamily, and/or extended stay, understanding what the plan would be for, normally this space is available to tenants, but we have an event coming up, and like, how do we, inform them, not be completely limiting them to access to some sort of outdoor amenities. And, that's for you guys to work out, but it'd be helpful to know that even when there's an event going on, there's a place for kids to go while they're living there.
Other feedback? Question to Ms. Holt. Did Plan Commission address both points adequately?
Yes, I would like to add that the parking at the church may also have difficulties due to our new park that's under construction, Century School Park, because there's no parking in that area too. So we're going to have lots of needs for parking, and trying to find that little area to park is going to be pretty competitive.
Good to know. Commissioner Hankard?
Okay, while we're just spitballing parking issues here, is a shuttle bus, I realize that's a whole nother level, but is some kind of a little shuttle running back and forth here a possibility? I don't even know who to address that to. I don't know if that's an applicant question or a you question, Catherine. I mean, have other, say, cities run into this thing where they start to really get tight on their parking, and then that's an option they turn to? Have you ever heard that?
I think that's one of those that we need to start looking into as part of the comprehensive plan, and adding that to one of the many things on that list. But I know in the past, this particular applicant, when it was the hotel and the event center, that was the 350-person event center, they were trying to do shuttles between the other hotels in the area with like the vans and things like that to take people back and forth to use the event center. So I'm sure that's still on the table for them too. But for a citywide kind of shuttle idea, that would be, the comprehensive plan would be the best place to look into that.
Thank you.
Last chance for feedback for now on this project. All right. With that, we will move on to the next item, which is I think we're on 9, which is a discussion and possible action regarding the initial review for a 3,300 square foot bank located at 411 and 415 East Verona Avenue. Ms. Holt.
Yes. So the property is located at 411 and 415 East Verona Avenue and is shown in yellow. The property is zoned suburban commercial and contains rental units and a commercial space. Just like the previous one, the applicant wants to gain feedback from the Plan Commission. This one has a longer history on it, but in September of 2020, a different applicant proposed a one-story, loosely 10,000 square foot commercial building with a drive-through, and that was for the two properties that are outlined in yellow, as well as the neighboring property to the west here. And that proposal is in the staff report. So I'm telling you this because some of the comments and feedback you may make on this one may still apply or may not. But the comments from the Plan Commission at that time included support for the shared parking at City Center and not at the fire station, support for additional right-of-way dedication, in favor of revitalizing the three properties, disappointment that fast food is proposed and not retail. Architecture will be very important for a gateway building to the downtown. Would like to see a little more bulk to the project, and in favor of a two-story building on that particular corner. So the proposed building, based off of staff's initial review, meets the setbacks and the bulk standards. Although the property is located in the suburban commercial zoning district, the front setback follows the central commercial zoning district, which fronts onto East Verona Avenue. So the maximum front yard setback for the central commercial zoning district is 15 feet, and the building is set back approximately 34 feet after the 13 feet is dedicated towards right-of-way. So there are two proposed access points, with one on East Verona Avenue, which is a right-in, right-out, and the other one is a full access point on Lincoln Street. Originally, the applicant talked to staff, and it was going to be a full access point off of East Verona Avenue, but based off of our discussions, we're trying to keep it as a right-in, right-out, as we may remove the access from East Verona Avenue in the future due to road improvements. Staff doesn't have a timeline for when these improvements would occur, and we asked the applicant to also reach out to the Lincoln Street Apartments in hopes that they would also want to share the access point off of Lincoln Street to minimize more access points. But the Lincoln Street Apartments were not interested in doing that. So the sidewalks will continue through that property, which will finalize that gap on Lincoln Street from the Military Ridge State Trail. The applicant is proposing 24 surface parking stalls, which is in the required zoning ordinance range of 11 to 33. Staff recommended the 13 feet of right-of-way dedication, which is shown loosely here in the arrow. And that's again for the future East Verona Avenue improvements. Staff's discussion for these improvements have included a wider sidewalk than the existing 4-foot sidewalk, a path, a two-way on-street bicycle facility, a bike lane, no on-street parking, an additional 3-lane, and maintaining the existing turn lanes. So, like I said earlier, we don't really have a final design. We don't have a timeline for any of this, but we would continue to have these discussions as more and more properties along East Verona Avenue start redeveloping. And we would continue to figure out what's the best, overall transportation corridor design for the Verona Avenue as a whole. So the property is located in the Downtown Mobility and Development Plan, which calls for this block to be a gateway to the city with a signature building to be at least 2 stories tall. The applicant is proposing 2 different building options in hopes of getting feedback of a preferred option here. And staff received an email dated November 27th, which was sent to each of you. The email was opposed to a bank because it's in a walkable area. And as we have found out this evening, a conditional use permit would be required for a drive-through for the bank and have a public hearing. So with that, staff recommends the Plan Commission review the submitted materials and provide feedback to the applicant that's in hopes of figuring out which proposed option works best, or if there's a different option of a different style building or something else, and any other comments that you have overall on the site plan. That's what they're looking for information for.
Thank you. Feedback on this one? Alder Posey and then myself.
So I think this, okay, so first off, I prefer option 2. We'll start with that as far as one or the other. I just think it fits in that area a little better. We have a lot of hard-sided, and to go full glass siding, while pretty in that location, it's not, doesn't necessarily fit that area. My concern with it is the tower. That just doesn't fit that area, and I know that we've had neighbors in other areas who have had concerns about bright commercial spaces as West Verona has developed. So that would be a concern with that being on, and I know that's kind of their thing, seeing some of the other buildings that have been built in the area. So I don't know if there's an option to honestly remove it, but otherwise, option 2 would be my choice. And then the other question I have is, and this will just go back to the applicant, I'm sure, the number of parking spaces, because I know that people are going to banks less and less and doing a lot more online, and it seems like a lot of parking for not necessarily a lot of traffic, foot traffic. And so I'd be, curious to hear where they came up with that need.
Is the applicant here if they'd like to address it? And of course, if
Terrific.
you introduce yourself too.
Hello, I'm Eric Gebhardt and an architect with Associated Bank. Just to answer your question before we start a project in any community, we have a line of business scoping meeting so we can kind of understand how many customers in the area. We are trying to hit about 24 parking spaces based on this branch and its location, but we're clearly going to be a bit under that here, and we could certainly consider removing some of the parking.
Do most of your locations see that many people using that many spaces at a given time right now?
I would say it has changed a little bit after COVID, certainly. But, heavy peak periods, Black Friday or other, big shopping days of the year, sometimes it does peak. And so you do see an increased amount of people that need to come into the bank. We're also having 5 offices and workstations in this bank, along with 2 conference rooms for closings or other things that might bring higher traffic at those times. Say if you're closing on a house, for instance.
And otherwise, additionally, I'm okay with the right in, right out, as long as it stays that way on the road.
Commissioner Wood, is it a question for the applicant?
So you are planning to have other business lines in there besides just retail?
I'm sorry, it would just be Associated Bank only.
But because the concern with the parking, are you going to have like your wealth management division, or do you know?
You could
that would
certainly
warrant
take
some of that
meeting.
additional parking?
Yes.
Okay.
You could certainly take a meeting with the wealth management advisor at this branch or request one there.
So then the right in, right out, how is that enforced?
I think that's a question for Ms. Holt. Thank you.
Sorry, yeah, no, not for you.
Ms. Holt.
So the right in, right out would require something like a pork chop. So it's difficult to make the left-hand turn to come out of it. And then it would also make it difficult, you could illegally turn left off of East Verona Avenue and go hop the curb, I guess, for the pork chop to get in. But that's not advisable.
Okay, perfect. I will say, I have always really liked Associated's designs for their buildings. I'm going to go against you, Christine, and say I like option 1 better. I like more windows, more sunlight, the better for mental health, probably. But I guess my only question would be, is there a way to kind of keep the design that you have of the tower, but integrate it kind of like to a second floor similar to the one that's on Mineral Point, I think, is kind of like that. So you still kind of have your branding that way, but then also could have additional space that you could lease out or, whatever.
Was that a question for the applicant?
It can be.
Um,
Yes.
I just wanted to say that at Mineral Point, it was a bit different situation where we had other executives moving there full-time
Gotcha.
that this branch didn't necessarily yet at this time warrant
Okay.
based on the growth, but.
Is that something where Associate would be open to leasing out the second floor to third parties?
It's possible, but not typically our first option, although we would be definitely willing on the next go-around to fold the tower cube element, maybe reduce it, or fold it into the architecture. Possibly the lobby of the branch could have a second, two-story volume with some clear-story glass or something to try to make it maybe a little bit more of the scale of the community. But we're looking for that feedback because we see the two-story, so that makes us want to go higher, but at the same time, we really want to deliver a branch that everyone really likes. So
Okay.
thanks for the feedback.
Yeah.
I'll call on myself. I guess I would be option 2 on the buildings, although in line with what Alder Posey said, less bright is better, I think. As far as general use, I'd prefer, like the Downtown Mobility and Development Plan calls for, to see at least a 2-story building there. I like 2-story buildings, I think I've said before, just because it's gentle density. It's a way to efficiently use space without being, too imposing. So I would definitely like it if you guys could explore a kind of an option, whether it was commercial, residential, whatever, just to kind of use the second floor and we can get a little more use out of our space. I just wanted to make a side comment. I do think it's good that city staff is trying to acquire road right away and look at extending the bike lane as well, because I think that's really important because people try to bike regardless and we want to make it safe for them. But that's my feedback for now. Other feedback from the Plan Commission. Commissioner Henkard.
Very glad to hear the right in, right out is somewhat like patrolled by these curbs, because that little intersection, it coming in there as you're heading west, people get pulling into Quick Trip, all that. It's already got its challenges, and so that's good to hear. This on the second story issue, you've got the Capital Fitness, I think whatever it is, across the way, and then the doctor's office just down the way. Both are residential above, commercial below. I look out at them every day. I think they look great and they seem to function great. So that's certainly welcome. As far as the architecture, I'm not an architect. I get to play one on Monday nights. But if you look at the fire station, maybe you kind of continue some theme of that architecture. It's got a tower. It's got some glass. It looks really nice. Maybe there's a happy marriage in there somewhere. Just a suggestion.
Other feedback from the Plan Commission. Commissioner Lytle and Alder Posey.
I guess I'll put forward my wish list. What I would love to see here is thinking a little more broadly, with a great anchor tenant like Associated Bank. It would be wonderful to be in a situation where we were redeveloping properties to the west of here as well. That could open up the opportunity for multi-use. It could allow us to do more shared parking. And it would also kind of fit with what we're trying to do with downtown overall, which is increase amenities, increase density there. That's my wish list. That was an opportunity that presented itself to the city that didn't pan out, which, I'm still kind of bummed about. Beyond that, obviously, you guys are following the zoning requirements and the overlay district and all that. So, I'm sure you'll build a very fine development and bank here. But, if anyone is listening with your client about considering going bigger, expanding this, making it multi-use, I think that would be a much preferred improvement to downtown Verona. But I know you guys have to focus on your client directly.
Alder Posey.
Ms. Holt has inspired me to make sure I'm thinking through every little piece. So one other thing that I know has gotten missed in some of recent developments are stop signs heading out before you get to that sidewalk, making sure that we are putting, it seems like an obvious thing, but it hasn't happened, so please make sure that on both of the exits, right before that sidewalk, we're getting that, because I know that this is a pedestrian area.
Other feedback from the Plan Commission? Ms. Holt, was there anything else we should address?
I don't believe so unless the applicant's shaking their head no.
No,
Or yes.
no shaking heads or no people shrugging in the audience. All right. All right. With that, last chance. All right. With that, we'll move on to reports and comments from the Planning Department. Ms. Holt.
I think it's Janie first.
I can take it, Mr. Mayor, no problem. Tonight, we have in the audience Lucas Sievertson, our new planning director. If you want to come on up, introduce yourself. He is from Wilmette, Illinois, where he was the assistant director of planning and development.
Correct.
And if you want to go ahead and feel free to introduce yourself to the planning commission, that'd be great.
Sure, yeah, well, it was an interesting meeting to come to. Had a lot on the agenda, a lot of different cases, so that was interesting to hear. It's always fun to hear how different communities, how their development patterns are, and kind of compare it to my experience. But, yeah, as Jamie said, I had been with the Village of Wilmette for almost 20 years, missed it by like 2 days. But yeah, really excited. I think Verona has a lot of great opportunities. Certainly a lot of growth is going on. We just got to kind of find the best way to control that development to benefit the community the most. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do
Yeah,
you have
welcome.
any questions for me, I guess?
Yeah, I guess, yeah, questions? And obviously, if you think of them later, you can just ask them then.
Yep. I'll be here next month, too.
You'll be fielding plenty of questions.
Yes.
Thank you very much,
Yeah.
Lucas. Appreciate you introducing yourself.
Okay, we'll move on to B, which is update on development projects. Ms. Holt.
The planning and development website is up to date, but Arnett Glen is under construction. The Azura, the senior building, is also under construction by the high school. And there's 3 apartment buildings that are under construction by the Woods at Cathedral Point, and 2 of them are complete, with 1 more to be completed loosely in the end of January. Arrowhead Lab is almost done, if not completely done. And the Dreger property is under construction, which is just north of Whispering Coves. So we're keeping the building inspectors very, very busy. So does anybody have any questions about any of that? I might know the answers.
I have a quick question. When are we going to get started on the comp plan?
As soon as Lucas is settled in.
All right, because we've been waiting for a long time. So, other questions for Ms. Holt? Commissioner Hanker.
On the comp plan, yeah, I am curious. Is it the same process roughly that we went through last time? We appoint a committee, a separate comp plan committee, and then they do their thing for a year, or what's the overview of the process there, Catherine?
How about I add this to the agenda for next month, and Lucas and I can discuss what his thoughts are on how he wants to proceed versus how we've done it in the past, because the first one was done because it was never created previously, and so we had to do it by statute, and you're starting from scratch. And this one, you're just updating it to confirm or modify or whatever else and expand it beyond its current 20 years that are left to the next, the next 10 years after that. So.
Okay, your 30-day clock starts now.
Alder Posey.
I had something that came up recently. Sidewalk closures during construction, is that part of what you guys look at and plan out? And that might be a question for, sorry, I'm looking at Carla. Just because it came up the other day, and I know last year when we were dealing with construction along West Verona, we had some sidewalk closures that caused some issues of, people being able to pass, and I just wanted to know if that's something we plan ahead for and can include or limit, and how we do that.
So yes, that's generally part of the, like the traffic planning as part of construction. A lot of that gets covered at like the pre-construction conference, which is basically you get the city engineer, you get the contractor, you get the design engineer, anyone who's going to actually be inspecting on site in the same room for a kickoff, and we'd cover that type of thing. Some of that stuff just comes up too during construction because there's details like that that maybe we didn't know we needed to close this, but usually that's all approved then through Public Works. So yes, it should, they don't have just full reign to close whatever they want, essentially. So if there ever is a question, you could always, reach out to me or Public Works, and we can say, okay, here's what the plan is, they have to have this closed, or, okay, we'll make sure there's a detour put in or something, but, generally they aren't allowed to just, do that without the approval of the city.
So if something comes up, they would then, that they didn't expect, that they would then notify the city is the procedure? That they
Correct. The
have to
city
close
or
it?
the city's, the city or the city's representative, who's out there during construction. Usually it may be a city staff person, it could be a different firm that's doing that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for Ms. Holt? All right, with that, we'll move on to the last item, which is adjournment. A motion to adjourn would be in order. Commissioner Wood.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Commissioner Wood. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alder Posey. All those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. And we are adjourned at 8:50 p.m. Thank you, everyone.